Hello everyone, my name is Antoine. I am a fourth year sociology major, originally from Haiti. Today I want to talk about my research paper titled Haiti's Complex Relationship with Violence, Masculinity, and Gender Inequality. This paper was written for my Soci 45 course, which was Topics in Critical Feminist Theory, where I was given the chance by the professor Dr. Mian Akram to explore the feminist topics I had learned in application to Haiti's current state. My research explores why Haiti has experienced a persistent cycle of dictatorships, gang violence, and gender-based violence. The objective is to uncover how historical experiences of slavery, colonization, and patriarchy shape the nation's political and social structures. Throughout this research, the questions I aimed to answer were how have ideas of masculinity and power contributed to violence and inequality in Haiti? So this examined how ideals of masculinity and what was seen as legitimate and illegitimate forms of power from the colonizer's perspective, which in this case was the French, have an effect on the violence and inequality in Haiti today. The other question was what role do/can Haitian feminist movements play in challenging these systems and promoting change? So this asks, are there currently Haitian feminist movements that challenge these systems? And if not, what role can they play in promoting this change? Haiti's story began as a slave society owned by the French. But the Haitians fought for their liberation, and it became the first successful slave revolt in the world. But the impacts of slavery still had an enormous emotional and psychological cost. The trauma of slavery shaped generations of Haitian leaders who were once marginalized and dehumanized. When they gained power, many sought to prove their strength and authority through domination, often mirroring the very violence that endured. This dynamic created a cycle where leadership became synonymous with control, aggression, and masculinity. Power was not seen as service to people, but as performance of dominance. And in that performance, women are continually pushed to margins, both in politics and the home. Women are often the first victims of instability, facing domestic abuse, sexual violence, and economic marginalization. Yet, they are also the backbones of resilience and community care. However, when Haitian women started political movements in opposition to these forms of leadership, they were often met with violent repression. The approach taken was a literature review and historical analysis. My framework was a critical feminist lens, and the sources used were academic articles, historical accounts, and feminist writings, or accounts from Haitian women. So my focus areas were links between hegemonic masculinity, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and patriarchy, cumulative type of violence and its social impacts, political leadership, gang violence, and women's resistance movements. So when we analyze Haiti's history from a feminist lens, it becomes clear that the country's struggle for stability cannot be separated from the struggle for gender equality. So my findings indicate that Haiti's ongoing instability stems from historical trauma and entrenched patriarchal systems. Violence became a means through which power and masculinity were expressed, perpetuating corruption and inequality. However, Haitian feminist movements can challenge these structures through offering alternative models of leadership grounded in equity, justice, and peace. The study concludes that social transformation, particularly through feminist activism, is essential for sustainable progress. To move forward, Haiti must confront the patriarchal patterns that have defined its leadership for over 2 centuries. True liberation requires dismantling the idea that power must be violent or masculine. This is where my next steps come in. For future research, I'd like to explore contemporary feminist initiatives and grassroots movements in Haiti. I'd like to assess their impact on governance and community resilience. And I'd like to conduct comparative studies with other post-colonial nations to see whether this pattern remains true across countries. I'd like to examine how historical trauma shapes gender and power dynamics globally. For future projects, I'd like to develop a community-based project promoting feminist education and nonviolent leadership in relationships amongst youth. Further down the line, I will pursue a master's in public policy and hope to use that knowledge to inform policies and initiatives that center women's leadership and education as a path to peace and equality in Haiti. Because Haiti doesn't just need a political reform, it needs cultural transformation, one that redefines what strength and leadership mean. And that starts with education and creating spaces where women's voices lead the conversation. Thank you for listening.